Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Chris Finwood, ODU baseball coach and former Crabber. Welcome.
Thanks, Bob. Good to be here.
Well, I tell you, we played phone tag for a while and finally got you here, but you grew up in other areas because your dad was military. Talk a little bit about growing up in different areas all the time.
Yeah, when I was very young, we lived in, I was born in New York, and then we lived in Omaha, Nebraska, and then we went overseas and lived in Germany for 5 years. And then we're fortunate enough to come back. My dad got stationed at Langley, and I was in the 4th grade, and you know, we kind of put down some roots here. He ended up retiring at Langley, and so I was able from the 4th grade on to stay in one place and grow up in the Hampton Roads area.
Wow, well, we're glad you did. Now, growing up, you played sports. Was baseball the only thing you played?
No, I played basketball. Always played basketball all the way through high school at Hampton, and you know, was captain of the basketball and baseball teams my senior year. So I always enjoyed basketball growing up.
But now, also played a lot of Pony League and Rec League and all that too, I would imagine.
Yeah, I played in Little League, played on the youth teams at the Air Force Base at Langley. Okay. And then once I got too old for that, played in the Pony League, in the Babe Ruth, and you know, in the city rec leagues, right? As well as the junior high and high school.
Do you remember some of your coaches you had growing up? And,
sure, yeah.
And some of your teammates? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, the one of the coaches that I remember the most was Mick McCullough in the Pony League. He had a great influence on me. His son Chris and I were good friends, and Mick taught me a lot of baseball at the junior high level. It was probably when I first started learning, you know, from him, and he'd got such a vast baseball experience, having coached and umpired out in Alaska and things like that. So I really enjoyed talking the game and listening to him talk about the game. Right there.
How about some of your teammates?
Well, it was mostly the guys that you know went to school with back then, and some of them ended up playing college baseball. Steve Irick played at Florida Tech. You know, we were teammates back there. We had some guys that ended up playing college football as well. So you know, it was a lot of the guys you palled around with, you played on the rec teams with, you played in junior high, and then again in high school with. So it was a lot of fun. Right.
Now I know you were talking that at one time you had Danny Mitchell and
Mike Moore.
And Mike Moore were your coaches.
Yeah, my sophomore year. They asked me to come out for the post-31 American Legion team, and I was the only sophomore out there. And Mike Moore was our assistant. Danny Mitchell was our head coach. Right. And you know, that was a really fun staff. Those guys were fiery, and you know, Danny, he liked to get in those umpires' faces.
I think he's mellowed a little bit, but
probably.
I understand.
But I learned a lot from Mike Moore too. You know, Mike was a scout with the Dodgers then, and played for Jack Stallings at Georgia Southern, and he has a wealth of baseball knowledge and still does.
Well, and that's what's kind of neat is that you got influenced by people with a lot of knowledge other than just local knowledge, which I assume really helped you.
Yeah, it really did, and getting a chance to go to tryout camps and professional camps and learn about those things, and Mike was great, you know, and he was working with Jim Garland, old Dodger scout in the area, and guys like that, you just try to pick up little things, and you know, you wish you were smarter when you were younger.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I've just listened a little, right?
Youth is wasted on the young.
Well, now you went to Sims, and at that point, you were going to go to Kickingham and play for Buddy Denton. Yeah. And then,
yeah, we grew up right off King Street, down by Langley, right by the gate, and at that point, that was in the Sims and Kickingham school districts, and after my 9th grade year, they changed them, and so you know, I ended up playing with all the guys in the summer in junior high. I thought I was going to go right into the Kickingham system. Of course, they were the best team around then. Right. Coach Denton had a machine rolling back then, and you know, then they changed them, so I ended up at Hampton. Right. Didn't know anybody. You know, and
like,
had to
almost
start
like
over.
being military going.
I was prepared for it, fortunately. So, but ended up being a great experience. Hampton, I enjoyed going to school there.
And your first coach over there was Walter Brower.
Yeah, Coach Brower coached me on the JV basketball team my 10th grade year, and then also on the varsity baseball team.
Right.
He was our varsity coach that one year, and then of course I played the next year, and Coach Brower got the varsity basketball job, and so I was on his first varsity basketball team as well. So that was a great experience. Coach Brower was a great coach, and I learned a lot about him. Didn't always enjoy his practices, but he made you tough.
Well, being a kid, practice is not always the best thing to do anyway. But you guys went to the state, lost in the state semifinals, if I remember correctly.
My senior year, we won the district, we won the region, beat First Colonial over at Old Met Park. Over there, Norby Wilson, who was a longtime legendary coach over at the beach, beat his club, and lost to J.R. Tucker in a close ball game in Richmond at Highland Springs High School, and they ended up winning the state championship. So had a great run. Frankie Driver was our ace, who was a 6th-round draft pick, I think. Right. Barry Miller, who played at Old Dominion and played professionally with the Giants, was a sophomore on that team. Was our first baseman. We had a really good ball club, and it was a lot of fun to compete with those guys.
Then you graduate, and you're being recruited. Now, I know you went to VMI, and we're going to talk a little bit about you being recruited. Then I want you to take me and tell me about the differences in what you have to recruit today.
Well, yeah, it's night and day. I mean, I actually didn't get recruited until after my senior year was just about done. Right. Coach White came and actually watched us in the state semifinals at Met Park.
And we're talking Donnie White, who was a typhoon.
Yeah, Donnie White, who's the athletic director of VMI now, was my baseball coach there. He's an old Newport News Typhoon and, Hampton Roads guy. And he came down and watched us. Back then, you had one coach in college baseball, so nobody recruited. What they did was, as soon as their season was over, they hopped in the car and went recruiting. And so they'd pile all their recruits in about a 2 or 3 week period after their season was done. Wow. And so they were just recruiting seniors then. And that's just what you had the manpower to do. So Coach White came down, and we liked what he had to say, went up for a visit, and thought it was a good experience. The whole military thing didn't bother me because I'd grown up right. In that lifestyle, and I'm awful glad it did, because it was a wonderful place to be a graduate from, and not always the greatest place to be at, but always a great place to be from. Made some great friends and great contacts, and people you still stay in touch with today.
Right. Well, talk about what you have to do to recruit now.
Oh boy, I tell you, it's gotten so microwaved. Everything now, you're recruiting sophomores and juniors so much more, and it's almost by the time a kid gets to be a senior, a lot of the players have already made their decisions, and so you have to really maybe project kids more than you ever used to. Right. The days of going, it still happens, but the days of going and seeing a senior in his high school senior year and he's a very good player and he's uncommitted, it's rare nowadays.
Right. Now, but you also have a staff. I mean, you're not by yourself
no
either,
question.
like Donnie was.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the reason why this has all happened is, college baseball is such a bigger animal now than it ever was. Right. You've got better facilities, better budgets, bigger staffs, more resources to reach out and spread out and recruit these young men and their families. And so you're able to kind of be more proactive and start recruiting them at a younger age.
Right. And you got your degree in what?
I got my degree in English. Oh,
so, another coach. Yeah. Coach Kozlowski had his in English.
Yeah, English major. I enjoy reading and writing and communicating, and that's just a big part of what we do, and we're all in sales, and so you have to be able to sell your program and your university and yourself and your coaching staff, and I enjoyed being an English major.
Oh, that's great. Talk a little bit about after you graduated, you stayed right there at VMI and coached.
Yeah, I did. I had an opportunity to work in the admissions office part-time, and then also be the first assistant baseball coach that VMI had ever had.
They didn't have an assistant before then?
Didn't have a paid assistant.
Okay.
And when I say paid, I use the term loosely because I wasn't getting paid very much. But it was wonderful. I had no idea what I was doing. Just jumped in, and Paul Maney, who was the head coach at that time, Coach Maney was a wonderful mentor, and he allowed me to get in there and make my mistakes and get my feet wet and learn. And he had a full-time job as the director of the Alumni Association too.
Oh, okay.
So nobody was just a coach back then like we are today.
Right.
And so it was great. A couple years of that. Then all of a sudden, Coach Maney retired, and at the age of 24, I was the head coach at VMI. And so I was the youngest head coach in the country and still didn't know what I was doing.
You had an idea what you were doing because you had some good influence along the way.
Well,
I mean, from all your coaches, because I'm sure you take something from all your coaches, from what Mick McCullough said, and from when you played for Donnie, and then the other head coach. You develop your own philosophy, but you take a little bit from everybody, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And another guy that I don't think I can forget is Mark Newman, who was long-time, really successful head coach at Old Dominion. I went to Mark's camps growing up, learned a lot about hitting especially and playing, and then I worked his camps as a young college coach and continued to just absorb his knowledge. He's one of the smartest baseball guys on the planet, and he's the number 2 or 3 guy with the Yankees now.
Wow.
And player development director, and so Coach Newman taught me a lot, and I still remember him telling me, I said, I really want to come to school at Old Dominion, Coach. He goes, well, Chris, you're just not good enough, but you should go to VMI, you can play there. And I still remind him of that when I talk, And he says, well, see, I was right. You played there, you had a great career there. And, sometimes it takes some people being honest with you.
Right.
And I always appreciated Coach Newman's candor.
Right. Now, you stayed at VMI for 5 years, and then you went to Auburn?
No, from VMI, I actually came back and went to VCU. Paul Keys, who's an Old Dominion alum, got the head job at VCU and hired me as his top assistant. So I left the head job and went back to being an assistant. I just wanted to expand my horizons recruiting-wise a little bit. And the opportunity to go to VCU allowed me to do that. And we had some tremendous years. I mean, we won the CAA championship a couple years in a row, went to a couple regionals in a row. 98, we had a first and second round draft pick, set the school record for wins. It was a great time. And from VCU, then I went to Auburn.
Then you went to Auburn,
and was there as their top assistant for 5 years. And we went to 4 regionals and 5 years there. And that coaching in the SEC is like getting your PhD in coaching. Great coaches, huge crowds. It's just an amazing atmosphere and experience to go through, and you really grow as a coach.
Right.
So that allowed me to feel like I was ready to be a head coach again at a larger level. And of course, at that point, is when the Western Kentucky opportunity came up, and there's a great connection there because obviously, Wood Seelig was the athletic director at the time, and I had met Wood. Everything is contacts, and I met Wood through Paul when I was at VCU. Wood was at Virginia, and they were roommates in college. Okay. And so Wood called me and asked me to interview. I didn't know anything about Western Kentucky, but I knew Wood, and so I went up and did that and really liked what I saw, the possibilities.
Right.
And took the job, and we were able to just do wonderful things there. I mean, I'm so proud of what we accomplished at Western, and that led us, that connection. Wood left my last year, and I was, a little bit down about that because I really enjoyed him as a boss.
Right.
I think he's the best AD in the country, and when he called me there and said, I want to talk to you about the Old Dominion job, I knew that we had a lot of work to do at Old Dominion. The program had been neglected for a number of years, and the facilities. And, one thing I know about Wood, when he tells you he's going to do something to support you, he does it.
Well, there
and
you
so
go.
we were very honest and candid about what we thought needed to happen there. And, he's never, ever told me one thing that he wanted to do and was going to do that he hasn't followed through on.
Right.
And so it hasn't changed a bit here. We hit the ground running, and it's been exciting every day. I tell you, my to-do list, usually it dwindles, but it grows every day, I think. But we're making headway, and real proud of all the facility improvements and how recruiting's going. We got a great staff, and so things are going real well. And we're excited about being a part of all of the peninsula, not just Norfolk, Virginia Beach, that side of the bridge, but we want to get over on this side, on the peninsula and
so you are going to play some games. Here.
Yeah.
In fact, you're going to play VMI.
Yeah, playing my alma mater. Marlon Eichenberry, their head coach, was one of my first recruits there, and so we got a wonderful connection. And Hank and Henry Morgan with the Pilots, talked to them last summer about playing a game or two over here this year and in the future. And so we definitely want to do that. We're going to do it this year against VMI, and we'd like that event to grow. We're playing it in March this year just because that's where it fit in the schedule with short notice. We'd like to move that later in the future. Right. Excuse me, make sure we get good weather. Try to get some big crowds, maybe do some military appreciation things, right. Have some promotions that way. I think the world of Hank and Henry. They've done a wonderful job with baseball on the peninsula.
And I was talking to a friend of mine, Conky Sorrells, and we were trying to figure out, why do the Pilots always get all these guys from Western Kentucky? And then I found out we also got them from Auburn at the time in this Wood Battle League.
Yeah.
That, to me, it's pure baseball. I love to watch these guys get up and play. But you were the connection.
Yeah. I, when they started the Pilots back up, Hank called me, and him and Henry, and said, can you send us some players? And I said, I'd love to. My dad and I grew up watching games in the bleachers over there at War Memorial, and so we wanted to send them some players, and we've done it every year. 3 or 4 just about every year have come from our program. So, and we'll continue that. I love supporting them. They do a wonderful job with that organization, and I mean, you can see it. You go there on any given night, you might have 2,000 people in the stands.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
So it's
it
remarkable,
really is.
yeah.
And it's you take your family.
Yep.
And Judge Patrick, got 2 grandkids that he's raising, and they just go all over the place because they're safe.
Yeah. It's family size fun,
right.
isn't it? And you feel safe there, and we love going. My wife loves to go with me. We'll be big fans of the Pilots, that's for sure.
Good. Tell me how your job is going at Old Dominion.
Well, it's going great. We had a really, really successful early signing class despite getting in the game late on the seniors. I mean, July is by the time we're all recruiting. And that's really late for one class, having no kids signed at that point. We ended up getting 10 young men signed. 9 of them were high school players, 1 junior college player. We also had a verbal commitment from a recruited walk-on who's a very good player. So 11 in all, and we'll sign 3 or 4 more in the spring. But good families, good students, good athletes, and from all over: Tidewater, Northern Virginia, Richmond, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. The Eastern Seaboard is going to be good to us because in Old Dominion's days, it was Peninsula kids and Tidewater kids, and then Eastern Seaboard kids, and we're going to get back to those recruiting roots.
Oh, good. We're going to wrap this thing up.
All right.
But I got a grandson who's a pretty good athlete, good baseball player. Recruit him.
Well, I tell you what, the first thing would be, if he's a senior and he's good, he's probably already committed somewhere, so we might be behind nowadays.
No, let's assume that he is not.
Yeah, well, what I would
committed.
do is I would call him and say, we want to get to know you, we want to get to know your family. We're going to sell the whole experience of helping your son grow up. College is a bridge between being a boy and a man, and we want to help these kids along that bridge. It's my goal for our guys to learn how to win at everything they do. And this doesn't always have to do with baseball. We want them to win in the classroom. We want them to win on campus. We want them to win in the community. We've done some neat community service projects here. We want them to win so that they understand that winning's not just something you turn on and off, it's a mindset.
Right.
So that when they finish in our program, they can go out and win a job interview and come back and say, my time in the Old Dominion baseball program and with Coach Finwood and his staff helped me learn how to do that. When they play in programs that care about those things and value those things, they learn them innately.
Right.
And every day we compete at something.
Yep.
Friday we had our guys out with our Army ROTC department for an hour and a half running through all of their drills. And so that had nothing to do with baseball, but it had to do with competing, and it also had to do with them having an appreciation for what our military does every day. Right. And so those are kind of the things. That's a long-winded answer of saying it's not just going to be about baseball in our program. I'm smart enough to know that's what we're judged on, is our wins and losses. But we want our kids to value and understand and enjoy all of the things that we're trying to help them learn through their college experience, that 4 or 5 year window that they've got to still be a kid but learn how to be a man.
Right.
And when he comes out, hopefully he's a good player and has some professional aspirations. We're going to develop the heck out of him. Physically, he's going to get bigger, stronger, faster. We're going to make sure he goes to class. That's important. It's important to me. And we're going to make sure that he finishes with a degree. You know, that's the most important thing, because even our guys that are lucky enough, there aren't that many Justin Verlanders and Dan Hudsons and Wayne Gomes. More of them play a couple years and then they're done, and then they're out looking for jobs. And we want them to have the tools and the abilities to go out and be successful in the world. And then come back with a coat and tie on and take me out to lunch. That's the goal.
I appreciate your candor. I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Chris Finwood. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Till next time.